Where Abra is standing by. It's hot in Cape Town, Abra. We've been seeing your guests wiping out the perspiration from their brows. Let's not call it perspiration, let's call it a summer glow.
Blaine, yes, I wish you could see the rig out here. We're literally trying to run away from the sun. So every time we're done with a crossing, then we move over. We try to move our rigs over to avoid the sun. But we're not going to be able to get away with that for much longer. But okay, back onto serious business now. I'm going to be speaking with the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Lechesa Tsenoli. Thank you for speaking with us, sir. I would like to know, today's SONA. In 2 weeks' time, it's the budget. Then Parliament rises sometime in March so that MPs can go on the campaign trail for the elections. What exactly are you going to be doing? Or what exactly is Parliament going to be doing with itself during now, this time, and when you rise?
Okay. Essentially, some of the things that we have to do is to debate the State of the Nation address. And this is why we are appealing to all MPs from all political parties to respect and allow the debate, the final debate before the elections to be conducted robustly but without disruption. And secondly, similarly, the same must apply to the budget. The statement of how resources are going to be deployed to achieve what the State of the Nation says, and then have that debated, because we are a democratic society. We've chosen democracy as a way in which we handle stuff. So that's going to be an important thing. But internally, Parliament will be also looking at responding to some of the key issues that have arisen in the last 5 years in a more very dominantly in the area of industrialization. There are things that are happening in industry, and this relates to the so-called fourth industrial revolution. We suspect the president might speak about that, but in Parliament we would like to raise levels of awareness internally, and so we will be having an expo here in Parliament on the 15th, and but also between the 15th and the first part of the week we'll be having internal exposure to the staff of Parliament itself, because the public will then be allowed on the 15th to come check the expo, see what's happening there and so on, because we think that there are interesting opportunities that arises from harnessing the new technologies to ease the drudgery of work, to make things easier, to relieve people of repetitive tasks and reserve our mental energy and emotional energies for more significant stuff. But we must also be careful not to kill jobs. There are jobs that must go because, quite frankly, they form part of what I describe as a drudgery. They are a drag. They shouldn't be done by human beings when machines can do them better. But what we must be sensitive to is that we must improve our levels of education for workers and people in general to be able to cope, including professionals, because the kind of information knowledge that we have is almost transitory. So if you do not continuously learn and educate yourself as an existing professional, you are in as much trouble as those who must improve their education. So it's an interesting challenge, which as Parliament we think it is significant that we place before the public as to highlight managing those risks, to ensure that we retain jobs across the environment, but we kill those that must be killed, and also improve the quality of jobs generally, decent jobs. It's an important general task, so that in the period emerging, we are able to cope with that environment better. That's our responsibility as Parliament to do. We are collaborating with the executive to help us do that to the best of our ability together. So the precinct of Parliament, its various spaces, will be used to try and showcase some of what's happening in our own country. We think and it's important, it's consistent. In May last year, we had a seminar on the same thing. And subsequently, in November, December last year, we also had the Speakers Forum final summit The Speakers Forum, being Parliament and the 9 provincial legislatures, together invited professionals and people in that environment who presented a fascinating debate, for example, about what do you call the 4th Industrial Revolution? Whether is it the first industrial revolution, as Professor Mike Bruton did suggest, and others warning us appropriately that we must be careful that this digitization and sourcing data does not defile democracy, that we must respect people's views as expressed by them in appropriate forums, so that democratic consultation remains how decisions are made, not substitute human beings for machines.
I want to ask you about that. As the Deputy Chairperson of the National Assembly, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, you found yourself in the hot seat many times. Yeah. Were there ever days where you felt that the machine was doing your job for you?
No, not at all, not at all. I think part of the work itself is challenging. To have to oversee and chair sessions of 13 different political parties with strong ideological perspective. You do expect fireworks, but we almost always insist they must be conducted with decorum. There are those who argue about what they call respectability politics. They want to suggest those have not delivered. But the opposite, disruptive and problematic conduct itself demeans the institutions that we run. We hear it from others who observe us that they feel, some of them, that dignity is done away with when we can be as robust and critical as we can be without being disruptive. They also even lose sense of humor when there is enough room for that to be part of what happens and so on. So yes, the presiding function is a tough assignment at the best of times.
Mr. Tsenoli, thank you so much for speaking with us, and I hope you have a good day today.
Thank you very much. You too.
I am now going to be speaking to the head of GCIS, Sis Phumla Williams. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us and speaking with us today. Okay, I'm not going to be speaking to you about logistics around SONA, obviously not. But what I would like to ask from you is, with all the various commissions that have been going on in the country over the past few weeks, with the latest arrests that relate to elections, and then of course we have the Estine arrest which took place a year ago, what do you think the South Africans' perception is of corruption and government at the moment? I mean, I don't know if you have some kind of a barometer measuring that, but where does that lie at the moment?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers. I think you're correct that I think the president set the tone last year. I think we were here last year when the president made a commitment that this government is going to deal with corruption. And I think we all understand the ills of corruption. And this president is on record in having said, we will do something. The commissions that have been set up, these are commissions that are trying to follow up some of the concerns that were raised by the public. And we will appreciate that some of these investigations that are taking place, these are issues that came from South African public who were raising a concern about what is happening in SARS. People were raising concerns about what was happening in some of the public institutions and also in the private sector. I think the South Africans should take lead from appreciating what the president is doing. Of course, we are very much alive to the constitutional system in this country, that people will be presumed innocent until they have been proven otherwise, and these processes are establishing that fact. They are taking the process to that logical conclusion. So I think from where we are standing is that we are dealing with corruption, but I can go as far as saying that South Africans have also an obligation to work with the president, to work with the government. It is not correct to just complain about corruption, but you have to do something in making sure that the law enforcement agents are able to address those issues. So from where I'm sitting, the president is on track in the commitments that he has made. We're leaving everything to the justice process, and we believe there is nothing that will stop the justice system from doing its work.
But you're hoping for more reinforcement to come out of his speech today?
Well, the president is on record last year in saying that we will be working in addressing the issue of unemployment. I have no doubt there has been a lot of work, but I think we are very much alive that the crisis, we are not yet over. Unemployment is still a big problem. The unemployment, as it affects particularly the youth, it's still a problem. But I think there is some kind of work that has been done by this government to work towards dealing with the issue of growing our economy, getting investments coming into the country, and by doing so, we're hoping that more jobs will be created in our country.
Ma'am, in your role, I mean, you meet South Africans across, of all backgrounds. How does it make you feel on a personal level when we hear our fellow citizens complain about their disappointment in government?
I think South Africans have a right to voice their disappointment. It is how we respond as government to those concerns. But I think I want to go as far as saying that it's okay to complain, but I think you need to work with government. I think that's what the president is saying, that let's work together in addressing the ills that are still facing our country. I mean, I was citing an example of saying there is unemployment. What is it that you are doing as a young person in terms of education? What are you doing as a young person if you have talent to access some of the opportunities that are presented by government? We're saying we want to make sure that that information that comes forward on corruption, we act on it. But we will only act on it if you, as a citizen, when you become aware of corruption in either your workplace or any of the environment, report it. And we trust us that we are saying we're committed to do something about it.
Thank you so much for your time today, ma'am. That was Phumla Williams of GCIS telling us that she does believe that the president has made a specific point about how corruption in government is going to be tackled. And of course, she says South Africans do have the right to complain about the high levels that we have in corruption in government, at the high levels of corruption, rather, that we have in government at the moment. But she's throwing it back to us. She's asking us, what are we doing in our day-to-day business to try and make this country a better place? Blaine, I'll chat to you later on.
Indeed you will. Ebra Babi, live for us in Cape